Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode on J of All Trades. It's a nice sunny day outside, although it's very cold. It's in December, and I'm looking at this outlet here because my mom wants to put some Christmas lights out in the front, but guess what? There's no outlet out there at all. And so I'm planning to take power from that outlet and put it right outside on the other side of that wall, right up against this siding. So to begin, I'm going to show you guys 3 ways to test for power. Now this is a GFCI receptacle tester, and what you're going to do is plug it in and it just simply lights up and shows you whether there's power there or not. It also shows you if the wiring is correct. Another way to test for power is by using this multimeter here, and you can set it to alternating voltage here, which is that V with that little squiggly line. And then you're going to take these 2 leads here and you're going to stick one side into each of those prongs there. And now we're going to get the reading here, which shows 120 volts available. And so that's another way to test for power here. And the last way that I'm going to show you guys how to test for power is by using this voltage tester. Now, once you turn it on, you're going to see it periodically blink. And you're going to stick this into the line side, which is the smaller prong side. And once you stick it in there, you see that light stays on, and you also get this beeping that comes from that tester. So once you kill the breaker, you could just plug it in and you see there's no power there. You can also use this tester here, as you can see, and you got no steady light, which means there's no power there. Finally, we can use this multimeter again and just ensure that there is no power to this outlet. And then once there's no power to the outlet, then we can start taking things apart. And there you see we got no voltage. So we're going to remove the cover first, and we're going to start taking things apart here. And we're going to now remove this outlet. Once we get this fully out, we're going to be able to see what kind of wiring is going on here. And so here I'm just using this voltage tester to make sure that there's no voltage present, and there isn't. Now I'm going to take off the ground wire here. Next, I'm going to remove these neutral wires. Now there's 2 sets of these wires because this is actually jumping to another area. And last, we're going to remove the line. And these are the wires that are carrying the voltage to the outlet. Alright, so we're going to set these aside and we're going to take a look inside and see what we're working with here. So some boxes may have a hole that's already available that you can just punch out and knock out. In my case, there's no hole because this is an older box and it's made out of plastic. And so I'm going to use this hole saw here and I'm going to create a hole. And I'm going to just drill that hole straight through the back of this box and make a hole right there that's big enough to pass the wires over to the new outlet that I want to run outside. Now, to get to the other side of the wall is a little over 6 inches, and so we don't have very far to go. So the first thing we're going to do is start drilling this hole in the back of this box. Now, as I've said before, most of you may have a punch out, and you could just knock out that circle right there, and you'd be able to pass your wires right through. So once I finish drilling my hole here, you're going to see that that wasn't very thick at all, and most of you will have a knockout right in the back there. And so you can actually see the wood back there. So what I plan to do is I plan to drill through that wood, because right behind that piece of wood is going to be your siding. And then we'll make a hole in the siding and we'll be able to pass our wires straight through all the way to the other side where we're putting the other box. So here is that piece that I drilled out of that box, and it's just a plastic piece, not very thick at all. And now we're going to make a hole straight through this piece of wood here. And you're going to feel right away when it goes through. And here is that piece of wood. And look at that hole there. And you're going to see the siding right on the other side of that piece of wood. So we're going to make a hole in that siding very soon. And I'm just going to show you exactly how thick that piece of wood is, so you have an idea of how far you can go through with that wall. And as you can see, that piece of wood was not very thick, and so there's not much there, just a little bit of insulation and a piece of wood. Now we're just going to use a drill bit, and we're going to drill a hole through the siding to be able to pass our wires through. Now once I finish drilling that hole, I can go on the other side and see exactly where it's going to land. Now I'm going to show you guys this single gang extra duty non-metallic weatherproof kit that I got from Home Depot. And as you can see, it's a single gang non-metallic with a GFCI. So that's specifically made for outdoors. And this is all weather. Now, this GFCI stands for Ground Fault Circuit Interrupter, which is a safety device that can help you prevent electrical shocks in wet conditions. And so you really want to use the GFCI outdoors because of that reason. So here we're going to be using that hole in the back there. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this thing apart and get it all prepped for the install. So we just removed this upper cover here, and here is a GFCI outlet, and here is some other things in here that we're going to be using. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little plugs here to plug up any areas that I'm not going to be using or passing any wires through. And so that's going to be the top and the bottom, because I plan to pass the wire directly through the back of this box. And so we're just going to close this all up here, and that's going to prevent any water or anything else from getting into this box. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do here. Now once we get outside, we'll take this box and we'll line it up with that hole there. And I'm just using a level to make sure this is straight. And I'm just drawing guidelines here to know exactly where I'm going to place this box against the siding, because I don't want to remove the siding due to water getting into the siding and into the box. So I want to keep all of this intact, and I'm just going to use that hole there because this box sits flush between these two sidings, and it works out perfectly for that reason. Now we're going to drill a couple holes into the box, and this is to mount our box against the siding. So we're going to be screwing right through the siding and into the wood through those two holes there, and that will mount our box to the side of the house. Now I'm using exterior wood screws, 1 1/4 inch screws, and these are really good for like decking, but I'll be using it in this application here, and that's to prevent any kind of weathering to these screws. Now I'm giving it a little shake to make sure that the box is nice and firm against that siding. So here I'm going to be using some Romex that is meant for direct burial applications, such as underground feeders or outdoor lighting, and they can be exposed to damp, moist areas. So I'm just going to cut a piece that's going to feed through this hole here and go through the other side to meet that box. Once I get it through, I'm just going to expose this wiring here and get it prepped and ready to be wired to the outlet. And now that I've gotten those wires exposed and all prepped and ready, I can actually utilize these push connectors in the back of this outlet here and just push these wires in to take a jump. And if you look at this outlet carefully, you'll see that these screws are gold, and that means that's your line side, and these screws are silver, so that's your return. And here, these are the connections that I'm going to be making here to jump to the outside. So you simply just push it in and it'll snap right in, and you give that a tug and it's already in there. And now we're going to hook up our neutral side. Just keep in mind that the silver screws are the neutral side and the gold screws are the line side. And so once you push it in there, you're just going to make sure that it's fully in there, and you can always give it a nice little tug and that'll confirm that it's holding. And the next thing you want to do is you want to hook up the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking the original ground here and I'm hooking it up back to the outlet where it was. Now I'm going to take this same ground that is coming from this new piece of wire here, and I'm just going to twist it onto the existing ground here. And this is going to be the ground that I'll be using to go out to the outside. So there, everything is all hooked up and ready to go. And now I'm going to start wiring everything else together. So we're going to put back our line wires here. So we've got two. And we're just going to basically put them right back in their original spots. So from what I know, this outlet is behind a sofa and it's probably never going to be used, maybe even once in a blue. Alright, so everything is connected on my line side, and I'm going to go over here to the neutral side. And once again, you see those silver screws. That tells me that this is the neutral side. You really want to take your time and just wire everything up correctly, because the main thing is that these are firmly on there. So you want to make sure that these screws are fully holding these leads in there. So now that we have our neutral, we have our line hooked up, and we got our grounding wire there good to go, we can now put this back into the box, and we're going to take those two screws and screw it in. And then our feeder is going through that back hole there, and it's going straight into the other box. So these two boxes are going to be back to back. Now that everything inside is all wired up and ready to go, we're going to start working on the outside. And here I'm going to just shorten this to the length that I need, and this looks like it's enough. And now I'm just going to take this to expose my ground wire that's in the center of this Romex. And as you can see, I'm just pulling these two pieces apart so I can expose that ground wire, and everything else I'm leaving untouched until I start stripping away the excess insulation. Once I get that excess insulation off, you can see the black wires there, and on the other side that would be my white wire. And so we just want to get all this excess insulation off of there. And now we can take the wire strippers and just expose the copper that we're going to wire up to our GFCI. Now here's our GFCI. Make sure you take a good look around and identify where everything is. We can see where the ground is, where the neutral, and our line. So if you see here, that's gold screws and these are silver screws. So the gold screws would be our line, and so I'm just going to utilize this push connector here, and the first thing I'm going to do is hook up our line here. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to hook up our neutral, and once again you can see that that's a silver screw. Now I'm going to attach the ground, and many times you'll have to manipulate these wires all over the place just to get them to fit where you need them to fit. Make sure that everything is tight. So I'm going to give it an extra twist just to make sure that these are nice and tight. Once you're all ready to go, you could just stuff everything in there and take your time and just make sure everything is settled in nicely there. And now I'm going to put the cover over this, and the screw is going to go through the cover and into the outlet. And you're going to want to start this by hand rather than using a gun, because you don't want to cross thread this. Once you've gotten these screws started by hand, you could put the gun to a low torque setting and you could take it in the rest of the way. And this cover and this box, make sure that everything is watertight, and that's how it opens up. And as you can see, it covers the entire outlet fully. Even the extension cord that you attach to it will be covered, and it will go through the bottom there. Now that we've gotten everything all hooked up, we can now turn on the breaker. So once you've got the breaker on now, you're going to come back here and you can actually press this button here which says test on it, and you can test the GFCI. So right now I just reset it and I'm plugging in this GFCI tester, and I just tripped it by mistake because there is a little button there on the GFCI tester, and so I just reset it again. And in order to test this, I'm gonna push this little black button on the tester, and as you can see, it tripped it. So this GFCI is fully functional, and those two lights indicate that it's wired up correctly and there is a ground present. So that is all set to go, and we've successfully installed this outlet here. And as you can see, the sill right here acts as a cover as well to kind of flash off any water. And if you really want, you can actually seal around the box with some silicone or some waterproofing stuff. In any case, this box is in a pretty good location right under the sill, so that's going to be able to alleviate some of the water that's getting to it. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel so you can continue to get more videos like this one. And I'll see you guys on the next one.